guys, it's Miss R. I'm back today with another awesome story for you all. Today we're going to continue with our sharks that we've been talking about. It's the last video with sharks today, but it's a great one. And we're going to be using a nonfiction text today. The book that I chose is called Shark, and it's a nonfiction book. And what that means is that this book doesn't tell us a story, it gives us facts, information, so we can have new learning, grow our schemas, right? You remember what schema was? That's everything that you already know up in your brain in this little file cabinet. And that's where we can access it when we need to figure out the things that we know and don't know. So this book is about sharks. And what I want to talk to you about today is about a way that we can read nonfiction. Because we have to read it different than when we read a fiction book. When we read nonfiction, a book about facts and information, it looks way different than a fiction book does. Actually, the awesome thing about nonfiction is that I can start anywhere in the text that I want to. I don't have to start beginning and go all the way to the end. I can choose wherever I want to start because there's no order in nonfiction. So today I'm going to show you all the cool and really interesting things that are in nonfiction to help us understand. And those things are called text features. If we look up here on my chart that I've got, it's titled Nonfiction Text Features. And it says why. Like, why do we need these text features? Well, they help us understand what we read. And in nonfiction, we need some help. So these different features that I've got here, we're going to talk about throughout the story when I read. You already have some really awesome schema about sharks. You already have stuff that you already know about sharks. So what I want you to do real quick is grab a Post-it and a pencil or a piece of paper, and I want you to jot down, write down, something that you already know about sharks, and then also write down a question, like something you want to know about sharks, but you don't know it yet. And you're hoping that in this text, maybe that question will get answered for you. So press pause, go grab the stuff that you need, think about what I asked, and jot that down. Then you can press play again. Let's see what this book, Shark, has to teach us. First of all, what you need to know in nonfiction is that there is a table of contents. It looks like this, and it's all the way in the front of a nonfiction text. It's the first thing you'll see when you open it up. And the awesome thing about a table of contents, boys and girls, is that it tells you what is on each page. So for instance, if I want to know about the tails of sharks, well, I can go to page 10 and 11. If I want to know about their feeding frenzy, I can go to 18 and 19. So it tells me what page has what topic or what information. This is what a table of contents looks like. If we look at my chart, you can also see that I have an example of table of contents here. This is what it looks like. This is what it's called. And again, if you want to know about an egg, go to page 3. If you want to know about a butterfly, go to page 8. So a table of contents can help us with where we want to start reading and what we want to read next. Oh, and then this page. Oh, this page is introducing sharks. That's what the heading tells us. See it up here in black? Introducing sharks. That's the heading. That means that these pages right here are all going to be about introducing a shark to you, to the reader. So this one's called Introducing Sharks. That's our heading. And I've got that on my chart too, if you want to take a look. This one is a heading, and it has it highlighted pink up here. So you can notice, like, yeah, that's the heading. Okay, it's usually the biggest thing on the page, the biggest words on the page. Here's what it says. It says, sharks include the biggest fish in the sea. But not every species of sharks is huge. Most are not dangerous to people either. There's more than 500 different shark species, from the gigantic whale shark to the little tiny dwarf lantern shark. And if we look at this page again, we can see all these different sharks. They're comparing them, showing you which ones are huge, which ones are medium or large, and which ones are small. So if we look at this page, we can see that they're comparing. They're doing a comparison. Big sharks and the little ones, and how they all sort of add up in size. On my chart, you can also see I did that. One good text feature in nonfiction is comparisons, when we compare how things look or how things are. And I've got that here, where we see this big penny, and in comparison to a little ant, that's what a penny looks like to an ant, because we're comparing them. Big sharks, little sharks, they've got a great white, a whale shark, a basking shark, a spinner shark. It says whale sharks are harmless to people. They won't hurt you. And it also says that you can find sharks in warm tropical waters. Whale sharks can cruise at about 2 miles per hour, and they can grow to be 60 feet. So big that sometimes they can bump into ships. And shark facts, oh well, sharks live in every ocean in the world. And there's some that you can find in rivers too. Bet you didn't know that. Schema building, right? Aside from humans, a shark's biggest enemy is another shark. Many sharks will eat their own species even. Sharks eating sharks? I didn't know that. New learning. Only about 4 people a year get killed by sharks. So when people say that sharks kill humans, it's not so true. And one other thing I want to show you on this page is, do you see how some of the words are much darker than some of the other words? Some words are like dark black, and some are like a lighter black. Well, we call those dark black print, we call it bold print. The author wants it to stand out to you. The author wants you to notice it. So they make it this dark black color so that you'll say, hey, I must have to read this part. It must be important. And on my chart, I've got that too. An example of bold text, where some of the text, some of the words, is much darker than the others, so that it can stand out. Oh, and this page, I love it because it has a really cool text feature on it. It has a text feature called a cutaway. And a cutaway is where they take something and they like open it up so you can see the inside of it. Yeah, isn't that great? Take a look at this. Boys and girls, look at that cutaway. You can see the inside of the shark, what he looks like, what's inside that you usually couldn't see from the outside. Cutaways are pretty cool, huh? I'm going to read a little bit of this just to give you an idea. So it's talking about how the shark has this skin that's really sharp and that it doesn't look like it from afar, but when you try to touch it, it's rough. It has sharp scales. They're called denticles. And it's kind of like his skin is covered in teeth, if you can imagine that. And as a shark grows, the denticles fall out and then new ones come and replace it. And if you look at this cutaway, you can also see that there is lines pointing to certain parts of the shark. Can you see that? It's kind of like a diagram. That's another thing that we can see in nonfiction text, is a diagram where they show different parts and they use arrows to point to where other things are. This is what is happening here on this page too. It's a diagram of the inside of a shark. It shows you where the stomach is and where the fins are and where his liver is and even where his snout and nostrils are, which are over here. We can also see that his liver is this purple looking thing here. So when we get nonfiction, we have to read all these things. This diagram, this cutaway, it's important. The author put it there so we can learn something. So we have to make sure that we take our time to read each of these little things. Oh look, this is talking about the gills. And it says some sharks have an extra pair of gill openings. Those supply oxygen to the eyes and the brain. Ooh, and this feature is cool too. In nonfiction, they do this thing called close-ups where they like zoom in on something. And if we look at our chart, we could see a close-up here. This close-up is actually of a snake opening his mouth pretty wide. But in this book, we can also see a close-up of a shark's teeth. And this shark is called a pighead shark. And look, you can see right here, they're giving a close-up of it. You see the teeth here, but you really can't see them in the picture. So then they do a close-up of it so you can get a really close look at what those teeth in the pig head really look like. Wow, right? We're learning so much. So yeah, that pig head we were talking about, it has a blunt head and a snout. And they also call it a pigfish sometimes. The nostrils on it are huge like a pig's because they're able to sniff out their prey like shellfish and sea urchins because that's what they eat. Also, it says that some sharks, like the hammerhead, they have special third eyelids. Yeah, 3 of them. And that those cover and protect their eyes while the shark is thrashing around trying to eat its prey in the water. Can you believe it? 3 eyelids? If you're having new learning through this, and you're learning something that you didn't know before, you should write that down. Grab a Post-it and say NL, new learning, and write down something new you've learned. Oh, and take a look at this. Here's another example of a diagram, but also a label. We learned how to label our pictures when we draw them. Like sometimes when you're drawing a picture on your own, you might draw a picture of your house and you'll write house and you'll draw a little line. Or you might draw a picture of your mom and write mom and then you draw a line so you know that that's your mom. Well, that's what they do here too. They label the shark. All these arrows are pointing to certain things, telling you what each thing is. It's getting a label. So for instance, this is pointing to his eye, and they're giving you a close-up of that eye. It says that most sharks have good eyesight. Some can even see in color. Some sharks have a tapetum, which is a special layer of cells at the back of his eye that can help them see in dim light. And look at his teeth. This diagram is pointing to his teeth, and they're even giving you a close-up of what those teeth look like. I've got this on my chart too. It's here, labels. And see how they've got all these different labels on the dog? His hair, his mouth, his eye. That's a really good example of a label too, just like this guy in the shark book. Have you ever read books before where you've seen things labeled? I bet you have. Maybe you should look for those when you're reading tomorrow. If you grab a book and it's nonfiction, see how many labels you can find in there. That'll make your schema grow for sure. Oh, and also this. Take a look here. This is pointing to his nose, his nostril, and it says, "I smell you." Sharks have a much better sense of smell than we do. As a shark swims along, water flows in through his nostrils. And if there's a fishy smell in the ocean, the shark will move its head from side to decide which direction that smell is coming from, so he can go after his prey. See that? Here's a great example of a photograph. Pretty much all of these pictures in this text are photographs. They're not pictures that people drew. They're not illustrations. These are actually photos that someone took in the water of the actual shark. You're going to see a lot of real photos when you read nonfiction. That's one of the ways you can decide if it's nonfiction or if it's fiction, because mostly real photographs are pretty much in nonfiction texts like this one. Here's a really good example on my chart of a photograph too. That one's of a little cub. But you're going to see photographs a lot in nonfiction. It's one of those text features that we're talking about. Oh, do you know what this is called? If you said a map, you're right. This is a map. And this map kind of shows you where sharks can live, where they roam and where they go, where different species live. So for instance, this is the Pacific Ocean over here, and these are the sharks that you can find in the Pacific Ocean. On the other side over here, these are where the Hawaiian Islands are, and that's where you might find this type of shark. So maps sometimes are really helpful to show us where things come from, where things live, or where to go. They say that the basking shark lives in the Atlantic Ocean, near Scotland, all the way to Canada. And also on here it talks about how they migrate, how they move from place to place. So if you want to know how sharks can move from where their homes are to where they travel to, you can also take a look at this map, and that's what it'll show you. I've got a map up here on my text features chart also, just to remind us of what those look like. So if we see them in nonfiction, we're like, hey, we know them. The good thing about nonfiction is that we can skip around wherever we want to go. And that's what I like about it. We don't have to read it in order. And we can even go back to a page if we missed it. There's something I wanted to show you on this page, and this is this little fact box. That's what we call it. And the reason why it's called a fact box is because it's a box that has facts in it. Things you can learn, something new. It says, sharks, they can't stop suddenly. They have to move left or right so they can avoid colliding with something. And they can't swim backward either. Did you know that? I didn't. Small sharks can bend more than large sharks when they're swimming because they're smaller. Their bodies aren't as big, easier to move and turn. Which text feature so far do you like the best? Is it the photograph? Is it the cutaway? Or maybe you like the close-ups. Why don't you pause and chat with your mom or dad? Tell them which text feature so far is your fave. And how come? Why is that one so awesome? Come back when you're done. One other thing I kind of wanted to show you in here. Oh, look at this. This is the attack page. And it shows you what happens when sharks attack. which they do a lot in the water, in the ocean, to other fish and marine life, but they don't do it so much to people. Even though you might have heard that sharks do attack humans, it's not very often. A great white shark sits at the top of the food chain. It's a predator and it's dangerous to fish and to lions, dolphins, mammals like seals, like this guy. It's true that they have attacked humans in the past, but it's rare. They don't usually go after humans. What color is a white shark? Well, that's this guy. And it says mostly they're silver and gray. Any prey that looks up from the bottom of the ocean would see the pale belly of the shark looking white. And since it blends in with the sunlight up there on the surface of the sea, it makes it hard to see that that's a shark. It's one way they can trick their prey. Let me see. Other cool details about sharks. Well, I wanted to show you one other thing about pictures. Do you see how this photograph here shows this silver shark here? Well, underneath it there's words, and it's called a caption. Sometimes they make a little bit of words near a picture. And when you see those little bit of words near a picture, it tells you what that photograph is about. For instance, it says, pilot fish feed on the shark's parasites and its poop. Ew! A pilot fish eats a shark's poop. Yuck! But that's what the caption says by our photograph. And I've got that up here on my chart too. It's right here. There's a picture and then words under it explaining what the photograph is. That's why it's a caption. Sometimes you can do that in your writing too. You draw something and then you write a little bit about it so the reader knows. And then at the very end of a nonfiction text, you're going to see something that all good readers need, and that is a glossary. A glossary is just like a dictionary. You can look up words that you don't know. So if you're reading in the text and you get to a word like, let's say, denticles, and you're like, wait a minute, I've never heard denticles, what's that? Well, you can go in the glossary and look under D, and you can find the word denticles, and then you can read the definition. It says they're scales that cover a shark's skin. Or if you don't know what a parasite is, you can find all the P words and look for parasite. And it'll tell you that it means it's an animal that lives on or in another animal and takes food from it. So glossaries are super important because they can help you if you read a word and you're like, wait a minute, I don't know what that means. And then in the very, very end of a nonfiction text, you've got an index. And an index is similar to a table of contents. You can find certain things on certain pages. So if you want to know where the word, where the word gills is, well, you can go to page 7, to page 13, and to page 28. If you want to know where the whale shark is, you can go to page 4 and 5. So an index can help you if there's a word you're looking for in the text, where can you find it? On what page? The index will tell you that. And just one last awesome fact about sharks before we go. And that is, take a look at these big beasts. These are the big sharks. One is called a basking shark, and the other one, well, the whale shark. This is the basking shark. This is the whale shark. Look at the basking shark's mouth. Isn't that cool? Here's what it says. The whale shark and the basking shark are the two largest fishes in the world. They They can be huge, but they're harmless. Unless you're plankton, that's what they eat. And they're also called the vacuum cleaner of the sea because they suck up everything as they're swimming. And they can filter 1,600 gallons of water just in 1 hour because their mouths are so ginormous. There are a ton of awesome facts in this book. The book is a nonfiction text by Dorian Kingsley. So if you want to check it out on Amazon or online somewhere, you can. It's got a bunch of other facts that I didn't read to you today. Text features. There's my glossary. There's my index, giving you some examples. If you want, you can screenshot this chart and save it. So next time you read some nonfiction, you can look for these text features too. How about this? How about you go back to that question you wrote down in the beginning of the story about something you wanted to know about sharks, or maybe about nonfiction even. Did it get answered? If it didn't, look it up online. See if you can come up with an answer on there. And for your homework today, I would like you to find a nonfiction text, either online, if you are part of Epic Books, or you're on Raz Kids or A to Z Readers, you can go online and look. Or if you're not, you can just grab a nonfiction book at home and see if you can find a heading. See if you can find a caption. Do you see a close-up or a cutaway? That's your homework for tonight. And also, see if you can find out some more about sharks. Today's our last shark lesson, which is why I wore my shark hat. Next time we meet up, I'm going to be doing something else, not about sharks. So until then, please subscribe to my channel. It's right below this video. Like it if you did, and hopefully you'll have fun with your homework. Stay safe, stay healthy,